Welcome to A Waldorf Journey, a podcast for teachers, parents, students, and people who are passionate about Waldorf education. I'm Meredith, and I'm glad you're here. I spent nearly 20 years in the Waldorf classroom, and I learned a thing or two about teaching in all those years, and some of those lessons were not easy. Through it all, though, I've come to the conclusion that there's nothing better than Waldorf for nurturing thoughtful human beings who love to learn. You can find show notes for this episode, along with a lot more useful content on my website, awaldorfjourney.com. While you're there, sign up for the newsletter to receive updates about new content on the blog and the podcast. You can also follow me on Facebook and Instagram as A Waldorf Journey. Now let's get started. So every now and then it feels right to just sort of sit down and talk a little bit about what's happening in my life and in my career, and really from the perspective of how that impacts a Waldorf journey and how other teachers might be inspired by my story and might be having some of the same thoughts that I've had at times throughout my career. So that's what this video is about. And I do think we'll talk, I'll talk some about a Waldorf journey and what you can expect in the next, few months from the work that I'm doing at a Waldorf journey. But for the most part, I just want to talk about the big question of why I quit teaching. And I've written a post about this on my blog as well, and there you can read, more maybe about the thoughts that I had about quitting teaching and how I spoke with my students about it. We're now, my students were in 5th grade when I made that decision to leave, and they're currently in 8th grade. So it's been a few years. I've been, away from the classroom for a few years and been doing different things at that time, during that time. I'm happy to talk about it and just what sort of was my decision-making process. So the real thing, to talk about, like, leading up to it, what was I thinking? What were the thoughts that were in my mind at the time? And there are a few things that were going on. So my last year of teaching, my students were in 5th grade, and I had thought about leaving teaching before that. And really I was holding the question very strongly when they were in 3rd grade. And I'll talk about the reasons why and sort of what were my questions that I was holding in a moment. But I was asking that question when they were in 3rd grade, and that was the 1920 school year. And so when the pandemic hit in 2020, I just knew I, was going to see them through that difficulty. And so that was the 1920 school year. And then 2021 was their 4th grade year when we were entirely online. And then 21-22 was the last year that I taught when they were in 5th grade. And like I said, I had been considering it before when they were in 3rd grade. And some of the thoughts that I was having were the following. One, teaching was really challenging. And I would say especially this thought was very clear for me and present in my mind when they were in 5th grade. And just the demands of being a teacher felt really challenging, and that there were circumstances that just made it just really difficult for me to do my job. And I had tremendous support, really wonderful families, really supportive administration. I felt good about the environment that I was working in. It's just that it was just difficult, and the pandemic certainly had a big part of that. And so that was one question I had. As when they were younger, and I was really pondering this question when they were in 3rd grade, I really was thinking a lot about my preparing myself for my own future. And this was, I think ultimately the reason why, the biggest thing that made me decide to step away from teaching. And at a certain point, it felt irresponsible for me to continue teaching, doing this work that I love, yes, but recognizing that this wasn't work that I would be able to do into retirement. That, my mother is actually a retirement planner and talks with people about this. And she says, there are two approaches to retirement. You could either work forever or save and plan. And, the truth of the matter was that neither of those options were possible when I was teaching. I wasn't earning enough money to save, and then teaching is not a career. It's a physically demanding line of work, and I knew that it was not a career I would be able to do into my 70s. And so I just felt like I needed to look at doing something else that was going to either give me, a type of work that I could do long into retirement, or pay more money, preferably both. And so those were really my two motivating ideas: something that would either pay me more or that would be sustainable, so that I would be able to do it even as I aged. So those were those things. And then, the third thing was really about this idea of growth mindset. And, you can probably tell in my work with a Waldorf journey that I really like learning new things. And, now these episodes are going up on YouTube, and I'm having fun learning how to edit videos and just figuring out all of these different technologies and thinking strategically about things, and how to support people, and just increasing my skill set. Like, I really enjoy doing those kinds of things. And it really comes from this growth mindset and this idea of just always pushing myself and really trying to learn new things. And, I told my students all the time that if we're not trying new things and making mistakes, then we're not growing and learning. And I felt like I was saying that to my students, but my teaching had become very familiar and comfortable for me. And of course, teaching is different in that there is always an aspect of it that pushes you to grow. It is a job that is rich with growth mindset all the time, even if you've been teaching for 25, 30 years, or at least the way Waldorf teachers generally teach. There is always opportunity for growth in those, in the things that we do as we're teaching. But I knew that combined with everything else, I knew that I wanted to try something different, and that my next phase of growth would be from doing that, from trying something new, and that would be a really important thing for me to consider as I was moving forward. So those were really kind of the big things, were, making things sustainable, finding a way to provide for my retirement, and pushing myself to learn and grow in a different way. The challenges of teaching, yes, things were difficult. Teaching is always going to be difficult. There are always going to be challenges that come along with teaching. So, that was an aspect, that was a facet of what I was doing, of my decision. But I wouldn't say that, the pandemic or burnout from the pandemic were really top of mind or a key reason why I decided to move away from teaching. So what did I do? I I decided to go back to school. I was actually still teaching when I went back to school, and I got my master's in strategic communication, which I loved doing that program. And I actually love strategic communication. It was just the perfect work for me to do, the perfect thing for me to be doing. It really aligned with the work that I'm doing with a Waldorf journey, and it's just really work that I'm well suited for. And I, found, over the years, I have done marketing copywriting to supplement my teaching income for many years. And that I just really was sort of making a move towards leaning into that in a more full-time way. And I thought that it would really serve those aspects that really were pulling me away from teaching. So, work that is sustainable, work that would pay me more so that I could save for retirement and plan for my future. And also the growth mindset, the, challenging work in a new area that is different than what I've been doing for many years. Those where I could tell that was going to be, those conditions were going to be met by moving into this work. And so I went to grad school, as I said, and then I started working for an architecture firm doing marketing storytelling is what they called it. And so I did, manage social media, their blog content, their awards submissions, things like that, anything that really required crafting a narrative around telling who they are and what their work was about. And I really enjoyed that. It was actually like a really good step away, because it was a very mission-driven organization, and I learned about a whole new mission. But my work as a Waldorf teacher and working for a Waldorf school that is also so mission-driven really applied and translated well. Like, I know what it feels like to work for an organization that is really making decisions and business decisions based on a set of values. And I really appreciated that. And as I reflect on it, I don't know that I could have done that work if it wasn't at a mission-driven organization. I think I would have really struggled with that, which ultimately you'll see why based on what I'm doing now. So things that I really found to translate, and this is really, I think, key for all of those teachers. There was like a rash of TikTok videos of, teachers who were leaving, and, and a lot of people were talking about skills that translate from the classroom into a business environment. And I certainly found that to be the case, that there were aspects of my work, though in many ways I felt like I was starting at zero. Like, I had been working at a Waldorf school, had been a teacher for many years, and had a lot of respect in the workplace. Like, people came to me for advice and ideas and recommendations, and I could tell that when I spoke or when I voiced something, that was, my thoughts were given substance, and, people were interested in what I had to say. I did not have that in my new job, and I really noticed it. And it was very interesting to be in that position. And I was new in that. I didn't have the same depth of knowledge and information that I could have shared. So certainly some things, but not as much. So I was often looking for okay, what are the skills that I cultivated as a teacher that do translate into this new environment? And there were plenty of things. So the one thing I would say that my colleagues at my architecture job would say that they appreciated about my work is that I know how to make things interesting for people. And I generally find things to be interesting. I don't have a hard time mustering up enthusiasm and interest in whatever the topic is. And I think that is directly attributable to all of those years in the classroom, just learning something new and then talking to the students about it. It's fun. It is fun to do that. And so so that definitely was a skill that translated when I was learning about some new architectural, project that they were working on. I really got into it and excited about it, and then could bring that enthusiasm through in the content that I created, which was great. I really enjoyed that. Then also organization and structure. Like, as a teacher, you have so many things that you have to manage when you've got this, group of students, and you have to guide them from, activity to activity, and you need to cultivate skills, and there are so many moving parts to what you're managing. It requires a lot of organization and structure, and that is something, if you've, followed me on a Waldorf journey, or if you have ever purchased any of my curriculum guides, then you know that structure and rhythm and routine are strengths of mine, and that I'm a very rhythmic person, and that I really value finding those systems and structures that make the work sustainable, and that translates really well. And I've found that there were plenty of people that, at least where I was working, lots of big idea people who, have that spark of creativity, but then have a harder time putting it into a framework or acting on it, because they don't have a system or a framework that it could fit into. So that's something that is another skill as a teacher that I've cultivated that I think translates really well. And then finally, of course, communication skills like that. How to talk to people, what people are interested in hearing about. You can read the room really well and understand how to, build enthusiasm when it's needed. And yeah, all of those things are, just the communication skills that are really strengthened as a teacher. So now I will say that what I am doing now. So about a year ago, or a little less than a year ago, I decided to leave my architecture job. And I had been looking for something else for some time. And I was motivated to do this by a couple of things. One, I found that aspect of, having been experienced and being an authority in the classroom, and having information to share with people, and having my thoughts and opinions be valued and recognized, I found that I missed that. And that I actually, when I was really struggling the most with this aspect of it, I thought, here I have all of these years of experience in the classroom, and it's just going to waste. And feeling like, I had learned so much, I had so much to share about that experience in the classroom, and how to make it a successful, positive experience. And those years of experience were going to waste. And, it is certainly my value and my belief that we are on this earth to learn and grow. And I was certainly doing that. But the other reason we're on this earth is to share what we have learned, and to help others learn and grow. And that was an aspect that I was missing by moving away from teaching. And so that was really a consideration that came to the fore for me about a year ago. And I was looking at some other positions at Waldorf schools in administration, and wondering if that might be the direction that I was going to go. And applied for a few, had conversations with people. And, once I sort of walked back into a Waldorf school environment, I just felt at home. And I realized that I was not giving enough value to that idea of using my gifts and my experience that I had gained in all these years and sharing it with the world and using it to support others' learning. So, and that there were certainly still things that I could learn. And so about a year ago, I did make this decision to leave that job and to go back into a Waldorf school. I knew that I did not want to teach again. Those concerns, those reasons why I left teaching still existed. I, needed to do something more sustainable, preferably something that would pay well as well. So those things still existed. But I just was convinced that maybe there's a way for me to have both, that I could still be learning and growing and pushing the needle and, really ensuring my own development while still sharing my experience so that I'm supporting others' growth as well. And providing for my future and doing work that is sustainable. I just was like, I bet there's a way to have all of those things at once. I won't say that I've found it. What I'm currently doing is marketing and communications for the school that I worked for so many years. And, there are aspects of it that have brought that back for me. I am more involved in, supporting others' growth. I get little tastes of the classroom here and there. I've, been supporting teachers with different things here and there, even though it's certainly not part of my job as the marketing and communications person at the school. But I do know that, when I'm needed, I can hop in, and I appreciate just being a part of those conversations when we're talking about students and the classroom and their growth and how to set things up, in the best way for them. I love that I'm there to be in those conversations when I can be. So I do miss teaching. I've said it for many years that, I just really believe that there's nothing more like engaging and exciting than exploring new ideas in a classroom with 30 other people. And, so I miss that. I miss doing that. I miss, less so now, but when I was working at the architecture firm, I really missed presenting content to people and, just sharing something that, I had learned and, leading people down a pathway of understanding and learning. I'm getting a little bit more of that in my work, my marketing and communications work, primarily because I have history at the school and I, am in an environment where I'm really the only person who's doing this marketing and communications work. And so I can share a lot about observations and things. And I'm in an environment where I'm informed, I know a lot, I can, talk with people about it. I do miss the human interaction. I get a fair bit of that, but nothing compared to, what you get when you're working in a classroom. I, do a lot of work at my computer, and there are things about that I love. It's very satisfying and rewarding. You set out to do a task and you complete it in a way that you don't really get when you're teaching. But I do miss that interaction. And then, really I miss, it seems silly. And of course there are things I can do about this, but moving my body, I just feel I have to really be conscious and intentional about having a balanced experience when it comes to activity and movement with just my physical body. I'm, very, I sit at my computer a lot. And, when I was teaching, I was here and there. It was a very active work, which of course was, part of the challenge. But I need to be much more intentional about making sure I have that balance now. So that's a little maybe catch up about what I'm doing now and why I left teaching and what, yeah, what were my thoughts behind it. And, I don't, though I miss teaching, and there are aspects of it that I wish for. And I will say too, I went back to grad school. There was a financial commitment to doing that. And part of the reason I felt comfortable doing that was because, I was certain that I would have greater earning potential out there in the world. And, here I am back at a Waldorf school where, the earning potential is what it is. And, but there are other benefits. So considering all of that, I don't regret anything. I'm not a person who tends to regret. It to me feels like a wasted emotion. I do miss teaching, and I'm very glad that I'm back in a Waldorf environment doing the work that I'm doing. This is work I'm passionate about, and I think I underestimated the importance of that, and that I just am not the kind of person who can do work that my heart is not in. And, after having so many years of doing this work that I was just incredibly passionate about, that is something that's very important to me. And so I feel like I've actually really found the sweet spot now. I'm loving what I'm doing. It's fun. The skills I'm learning are definitely, new to me, but I appreciate all of it. So that's what's happening. I would love to hear if you are a Waldorf teacher and you have had these same thoughts about teaching and just wondering if it's sustainable for you, or if you should be looking at doing something else. I'd love to hear from you. I'd love to get a little chat going in the comments. If you're listening to this on your podcast app, maybe head over to YouTube and participate in the comments there, or you can leave a comment on the blog post that goes along with this episode. And I would just love to hear your thoughts. And, this choice to be a Waldorf teacher is a big one and incredibly rewarding. And there are sacrifices that we make also. And it's just a matter of balancing those. So thank you so much for watching. If you're on YouTube, please subscribe, and you can hit the little bell to get notified when I post a new episode. Also, check out my blog, awaldorfjourney.com, and of course I have curriculum guides there, and I'm really working over the next few months to flesh out the full curriculum throughout the grades. It's a little bit of an ambitious task to have everything for all the grades, but I'm hopeful that I am going to have that ready by the summertime when people really are starting to look for curriculum guides. And of course, follow me on Instagram and Facebook, and I do have a TikTok too, but I don't know. It seems like there aren't a lot of Waldorf folks on TikTok, but you can check it out there if you want. So, all right. Thanks so much for watching. Have a great day.